Welcome back, everybody, to the Nevin Shapiro Show. I'm Mike Tirado. I'm here with Nevin Shapiro. And, man, today do we have a guest for you. We told you you're going to bring some college legends, but we also are bringing some high school legends. And I don't think there might be anybody better in the realm of high school sports than this guest today. This is someone who has been covering high school sports and promoting Florida high school players and players across the country for 55 years. Legend in this realm. Everybody, please let's welcome Larry Blustein.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You didn't have to build up.
It's a build up, man.
Those 55 years make me feel real old now.
Listen. This is, you know how I get Mike. Mike is the fanboy when it comes to the players, the UM legends, the 2001 guys.
Rightfully so. So.
But like for me, sitting down with Larry Blustein is really just, it's a great thrill. And for those who are going to watch, I got questions for him. You know, I don't script anything. I just go for the dome. But like, I'm going to bring it for people that really love. This guy's a legend, man. This is the AI before AI of high school sports in the state of Florida.
100%.
I don't give a shit what you think you know. You don't know what this guy knows.
Yep.
And you know, that's it. But that's our intro, man. So great to have you.
Yes.
Thanks, Lynette. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Before we get started, guys, if you are not subscribed, please click that subscribe button. And if you're a University of Miami fan tuning in, trust me, I'm going to ask Larry Blustein plenty of University of Miami questions. It'll be a little bit later in the show, so stick around for that. But we are just so excited to have Larry on. So without further ado, let's get into the action. So for the viewers that are tuning in, can you explain to them exactly what you do in high school sports, especially here in South Florida, for the viewers that maybe are unaware of your role here?
Right. First of all, you know, I evaluate talent. I go around seeing kids live, which a lot of people now in this, as you mentioned, AI and all this, they sit home on their computer and rank kids, and I don't do that. I'm old school. And, you know, for people to understand, I started this out a long time ago, before there were cell phones, before there was any of that. I had to carry like $17-20 of change in my pocket to use to pay phones. You know, I know that's archaic for you. Yeah. Maybe you came in at the tail end of that, but no. It was. I'll tell you what. But I would, you know, back in the day, if you make a call to a kid, you know, you'd have to call them and put like $4 in there just to talk to them. You know, there was no cell phone pick it up, no, you know, any of the great things that they have today. So that's how I learned, and that's how I still do it. And that's what, you know, when people go, oh man, you're an OG and you know, you're behind the times. And I'm not behind the times. I've kept up with everything. You know, I mean, I have every commodity. I do podcasts. I have radio shows. So, and I have kids who are young enough to be my grandkids on there, and they'll text me all day and tell me things that they did and all that. And that probably is the most fulfilling part of what I do, is you get kids' trust. And because they know you're only there to promote them. You're not out there to say, oh, well, that kid is slow, or he can't catch, or can't make tackles. That's what I do. And I evaluate talent. I go to this last summer, I went to 13 college camps around the state, from West Florida to Florida State, all the smaller schools like St. Thomas University and Florida Memorial and Southeastern University and Warner, and, you know, everything. Miami 3-4 times for 7-on-7, FAU, FIU, everything. So I see kids live, and I'll find players, and I go to offbeat games. You know, I'll go to afternoon games where he's like, why are you at Palmer Prep, or why are you at these schools? Because you're going to catch somebody. You're going to get a player that nobody knows about. And you're going to see a kid that all of a sudden's a 9th grader and 6'3", 220, and he's a beast, and no one knows about it.
The art of scouting.
Exactly. And you will never find, and like I always tell the rivals and the 247s and all those, you know, those major product, you know, guys that are fueled by putting out 5 stars, I said, you'll never find an under-the-radar player. I tell that to Andrew Ivins. I tell that to, you know, to John Garcia and everybody who covers, you know, nationally. I says, you will never find an under-the-radar player because you don't go to those games.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I'll find these kids, because everybody knows the 5 stars. Come on.
Yeah.
You guys will know, the elite kids. But it's those no stars, or a kid like this kid who went to Coral Gables, Jeff Francis from NFL Academy, and and he's already committed to FSU. Nobody knew a damn thing about him. He's 6'6", 300 pounds. Nobody in the country, and FSU found out about him because I started talking about him a little bit. They checked him out. They looked at his background. It's like the whole thing is you're getting kids that in this day and age nobody should be under the radar because of the fact that you have all those camps, you have those those 7-on-7s, you have those combines, you have all those
social media,
but if you go to an event, you're going to have enough of these, if you ever go to a game, and I saw you guys at the West Broward game at the beginning. At that game, back at 25, 30 years ago, all you would have is the Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel. Right. And maybe me and another person.
Yeah.
Now you have all these young kids that have gotten in, like complete the 305 coverage. Brothers who do a great job. They're there. They're documenting things, and they're just there not to evaluate. They're out there to promote. And the kids will, like a Nick Lanier will catch a touchdown, and somebody will get because those kids love that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's a whole different world now. But during the summer camps, I'll be sitting at FSU, or I'll be at West Florida, I'll be at Miami just for a prospect camp. And other than like Gabby Urrutia or anybody that covers Miami, nobody else will be there. It's not their interest. But to me, when I talk to the Miami people and they say, hey, by the way, this is who's going to be here, at our prospect camp. And I'll see a guy, who's a sophomore. That's my interest. I mean, not the guy who's already an established, Derek Cooper type of guy.
Right.
Who, by the way, I got before anybody because I went to youth football and watched him and, kind of saw him when he played. He started out, he played the Hurricanes. He also played with, the Ravens. And obviously the Ravens are that big time, program. But that's what I do. I try to evaluate kids and promote kids. So when a lot of these Miami, all of a sudden somebody committed to Miami, and all these guys are Johnny come lately. Oh, this guy. I said, I've been watching that kid since he was 13 years old.
Great points, Larry, that you make. I could ask you 100 questions just on what you just said. Let me start with one question. So you are, it's so obvious how well respected you are within this framework. Do the state school coaches, Miami, FSU, UF, USF, UCF, do the FAU, do they reach out to you for your input on player personnel scouting when they're doing their own?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, too, and people shouldn't be misled. All these coaches will contact 1 million people to ask about a kid.
Yeah.
But the one thing, they could sit home and watch film. They could watch everything about a kid. But the one thing that they can't tell is what type of character they have.
Yeah.
And if you run a 4.27, which is great, if you're a dick, you're gonna rip the whole program apart. So they want to know that. I remember Jimbo Fisher, when he was an assistant at LSU, used to call me all the time and ask me. He wouldn't ask me, "Hey, can that kid run?" Or
he already knows that.
Yeah, he already knows that. Don't be fooled to think that these analysts are telling these top flight
is the kid a fuck up?
Yeah,
or not?
Ryan Day. Hey Ryan, this kid is he already knows what he could do.
Right.
But he wants to know what type of kid he is. He wants to know. Like with Teddy Bridgewater, when Teddy was at Northwestern as a player, when he was younger, he wouldn't get his receivers together while the defense was out there. He'd be out there by himself, maybe just hanging out, and all of a sudden, somebody told him, "Hey, you can't be doing that. You need to have your, everybody together." And then whoever told him that at the time. It worked because, he did a damn good job.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that the college coaches really want to see, Nevin. They don't give a crap about, you could tell them, oh, that kid runs a great pattern.
They already know, right?
Yeah, they already see that. And they have enough film in every angle, from drones all the way down to footage on they don't care.
This is a business now.
It's
like this is a business. So if you're a parent who's got a kid that's, let's just say 14, ascending to that next level, you have a full-fledged enterprise on your hands, and you've got to watch it and manifest that and nurture it, because there's no secrets anymore with these kids, especially now you're talking about big money. Well,
especially at a private school. You know, I mean, the public schools, you know, they have the Bright Futures and they have all these things where parents, you know, save up for, and they can kind of help defray some of the costs along the way. But at a private school, I mean, you know, I mean, Miami, 100 G's.
Crazy.
And, you know, I mean, it's crazy. It's like Ivy League education.
I couldn't get in.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people couldn't because of the fact that, you know, financially, and somebody's got to pay these doctors and people who teach. You know, I mean, these people go to school for a long time to be, you know, especially you look at Miami with their medical school, Miami with their business school, and, you know, you look in the ACC alone, and you have Boston College, and you have Duke. These are all private schools. Wake Forest. I mean, so they have to pay. Somebody has to pay the freight. You know, these kids, even though he's got a scholarship, but somewhere along the line, someone's got to pay the freight. That's where you have boosters, and that's where you have, you know, people who fundraise. And, you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you. So, and that's where the money comes from. You know, somebody has to be, you know, like they always say, well, oh, that guy's going to, you know, to Stanford, like Cedric Irvin's son's at Stanford. Well, yeah, he's there on a scholarship. He did great. And the whole thing is an enhancement is if the kid gets it done in the classroom. Because then, you know, you got all, you know, there's a lot of professors and doctors who teach that don't give a crap about sports. They don't care
less.
They care about teaching, and, you know, because it's become, whether anybody wants to hear it or not, back in the day, it was great when you get recruited because someone would say...
get an education.
Well, yeah. And these kids aren't here long enough to pick up a check, you know? I mean, and, you know, look at all these guys that, okay, I'm bringing in Miami, but it's any school, that came in January, all right? By December, they're back home. Without,
gone.
You know, well, they've taken five classes.
The whole landscape is...
It's crazy.
You know.
But... it counts against the, you know, the school. You know, people are looking, and, you know, there was a time, guys, where, you know, you were an athlete. Now, Antoine Smith came out of Pahokee, went to Florida State. I remember when he told me, he says, I went to FSU this weekend. I said, oh, how were they athletic? He goes, I didn't get there. He says, I was walking around checking out with the students and asking them about the campus and about their business program. That crap ain't happening no more. No. Sorry. You know, it's just, you don't do that. The Xavier Restrepos, the Reddings, those people are far and few between, you know. And I always tell the kids, I said, listen, if you're a marginal player, but you going to go to a school for 4 years, use the goddamn place. Yeah. Get your education. Be a Xavier Restrepo. Get 2 goddamn degrees out of Miami. Yeah. So if you don't make it in the NFL, you're just a step away from, you know, and, you know, I mean, Miami, all these schools have a great alumni base where they have lawyers and doctors and all these high-level people who are going to say, hey, you graduated from that school with 2 degrees?
It matters.
Get your ass over here.
It matters.
Know, I mean, it matters. And because they want to say, hey, listen, we've got University of Miami graduates here. Yeah. And believe me, and not just that, FAU, FIU, all these programs have that type, and that's what matters. I think the most, but it's gone away from the education. They don't preach
100%. Right.
Yeah.
100%.
So you obviously cover everybody across the country.
Yeah. But
what would you say makes a South Florida kid different? I don't think there's anybody better to answer that question than you.
Yeah. There's a hunger. You know, I mean, you look at a lot of these areas. Okay, Houston, LA, Dallas, Atlanta, New Orleans, and a lot of their good football programs are suburb schools. Miami's best programs are inner city. So you answer your own question in the fact that Northwestern, Central, Norland, all those are deemed inner city schools. And there's a hunger to get the hell out of there and not to hear gunshots at goddamn night anymore, you know, or having, you know, sirens buzzing in your neighborhood all freaking night. Those kids want they want out of there. They want out of there, you know, and that's the thirst now. Whereas if you go to, you know, Dallas and you look at South Lake Carroll or some of those schools like that, they're suburb schools. Or Houston with Katy. There's very few North Shores, which is an inner city school where Vince Young came out of. And, you know, you look at, and also Miami, Dallas, and LA are the 3 top areas in the country for youth football programs. Those three areas have great football programs. So the time that Miami kids get to high school, second nature.
Yep.
Dalvin Cook, Joe Yearby. Those guys could walk in. Joe Yearby's first game against Camden County up in Georgia as a 9th grader, coming right from youth football, return to kick against one of the best teams in the country for a touchdown. Those things like that, that's why you have Neiman Lawrence. That's why you have a lot of these kids.
It's just inborn, man.
They have, and it's not like it's not anywhere else in the country, but it's more so here.
It's different.
Because when you have a Rod Mack, a former University of Miami Hurricane, coaching kids at that level with the Ravens, they have that knowledge when they get to that high school level that, okay, it's an extension,
DNA,
is what
man.
it is.
DNA.
Yeah, look at the rosters of Central and Northwestern and Edison, and you're going to see a lot of these 9th graders making an immediate contribution. And it's not to say it doesn't happen everywhere else in the country, but here in South Florida more so.
So, man, there's so many. Mike and I were talking before you were coming on. You know how excited I was, and there's just so many different layers and angles that I could come at you with because I know you're going to have the answers. Here's one question. So, we did an interview with Tolbert Bain and Benny Blades a few months ago, which for me is my era, right? Those 86 emerging horror gangsters that everybody loved, hated, but you weren't on the fence.
Right.
And we were talking about the difference with NIL now today as opposed to what life was back then. Benny gave a great answer. He goes, nobody wants to compete anymore. Because you're walking into a situation where, we had no choice. If you got hurt, the next guy's coming in. He's taking your spot.
Yeah. Next man up. Yeah.
Next man up. And, Jimmy was coaching that. And what our mindset was back then. What's your thoughts? Not so much on the NIL. We all know, at some point, the kids had to get paid. We agree that was way past due, right? But, what's your thoughts on how it's affected the product on the field, the kids' mindset, similar to what Benny had shared with us on our thing, kids just don't want to compete. How do you see it from your vantage point, being from the real early era to where it is today?
Well, I was the first one to say, yeah, they should be compensated. But my version of being compensated, and this is what I thought, this is probably me being dumber than dumb at the beginning. I said, oh, okay, they needed some pocket change. They want to take girl out, or they want to, get home during a break, or this or that. Now, I thought it was, a couple of $100 here and there and throw it. I never thought it would get into the millions.
Crazy.
Yeah, no. And that's because the NCAA, for a better lack of things, are pussies. Okay? They never stepped in at the beginning, and now that this is getting out of hand, now they want to step in. Your ass is way out of date, and you can't step in now and start making rules when you didn't do it at the beginning. And the epicenter of NIL and the epicenter of the transfer portal is right here in Miami. You know who the first NIL recipient was? De'Ara King.
Yeah.
First guy right here. First transfer portal.
Trucks for trailers, trucks for hauling.
Or going to a nightclub or going to a restaurant and appearing there and getting $1,500 for the night. That was his first gig. Because I was there just to see what it was like, and I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. And it grew. Same thing with the transfer portal. Manny Diaz, he's the father of the transfer portal. Whether anybody wants to know it or not, he's the one that started this thing. He brought in some kids, and then everyone goes, well, wait a minute. We could do the same thing. And it kind of snowballed, and everybody kind of forgot about it. But that's what my thing was, Nevin, at the beginning. I thought it was just, put some change in your pocket. Yeah. To go out, on a Saturday night, all the boys are out, partying, taking some dates and going to clubs and stuff, and you can't do it because you don't have any change. So I thought that's what it was going to be like.
Interesting response.
Yeah.
So let me chime in. Since I went toe-to-toe with these clowns, right? I told these guys, listen, there's got to be another me running around. Positive of it. I know it firsthand.
Yeah.
And who they are. I said, you've got to compensate these kids. And I had said this to Mark Emmert's underbelly, his entire underbelly. I said, you got to give these kids something, $1,000 a month stipend, whatever. I'm not a financial guru in that regard, right? But I said it would pacify the natives. The natives being the student body athletes that were going to be collecting it.
Yeah.
Everyone would, see how it goes for 5 years. Okay, they need a raise up. You come to the table, you give them more money because there's a lot of money being made.
Right.
They didn't want to pay kids. They made this decision. I said the same thing on Paul Feinbaum's show. He had me on. We were talking a few months ago, and I said the same thing. They never wanted to pay the kids. The only reason these kids are getting paid is because the court said you're getting paid.
Yeah.
But they never want to do. So your point is spot on. They created this mess.
Yeah.
They can't walk the horse back into the barn.
Not at all.
And now you got starting quarterbacks driving Lamborghinis everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's unfortunate because it's leaving a lot of the guys who aren't the high-profile kids out of this mix, and they're getting soured. Because if you have the locker next to Carson Beck, and you're Emory Williams out of Milton, Florida,
you're feeling a certain
and you just filled up your Datsun with gas.
Yeah. You're feeling a certain way.
Yeah, you're feeling a certain way. And they tell you to be a team player. But when someone's raking in a lot of money and you're busting your ass 12 months a year to help the team, because it's a team game still, remember, they've turned it into an individual game. That's what they've done.
I would love to be the team player as long as I'm the guy getting the Lamborghini.
Yeah,
right.
Or at least something of that nature to make you feel that if this is a team game, then why is he making
too top heavy, not good for the bottom line.
Yeah. And the thing was, it started out where the football or the universities couldn't say anything, NIL wise, or they couldn't comment on it because it was illegal.
Yeah.
But now everybody's commenting on it, and you got to have a capologist just to be.
For this.
Yeah, you do.
Could you have ever seen, let's say, that epic 2001 University of Miami team that everybody considers to be the greatest team ever assembled? Could you ever see that team staying together in the NIL era?
No.
Not possible, right?
No, because there'd be too many people, bidding on it, and Texas and USC and all the Ohio State with more money, because it's an unfair playing field. You have a group of people.
Monopoly.
Yeah, it's hugely a monopoly, and the Texases, the Ole Misses, Ohio States, USC even. See, USC and Miami were pretty much the same entity, large city.
Agreed.
10, 12,000 undergraduate private schools.
Similar to Jimmy Johnson, almost.
All right, here's a perfect
right?
example. Both Miami and USC were on probation at the same time. USC went and got those 5-star linemen and 2-star running backs. Miami went and got 2 or 3-star linemen and Duke Johnson. And that's what happened, that you had to kind of see what was going to be best for the program. So obviously we know that, I bring up UNLV because that's where I went, that they're never going to be on that same level as Ohio State. They're never going to be on that same level, as a lot of these programs, because of the fact that they have, they have more. They have a lot more. And it's you're going to find the same 10 teams every year that are going to be in that little
100%.
grouping, and they're not going to slip too far. Yeah, to me, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Florida, but there's no way Florida should be under anything. That program makes more than anybody. They have like Miami played Notre Dame and there's 66,000, but next week they play Bethune and there's 25.
Yeah.
That ain't happening in Gainesville.
No.
That ain't happening in a lot of these programs, because it's just not the culture of the program.
Right.
And, the whole thing is I was the guy back in 1971 and 72 that was in the Orange Bowl on a Friday night, when Miami played Texas, and Texas was number 5 in the nation, and Miami beat them. I was there when Miami...
Fred Akers?
Actually, it was back then. Roosevelt Leaks was the running back, and
Rosie
he was pretty good. And then,
sit this one out.
No,
Mike.
no, that's all right. And I was there back in 1967 when USC came in here on a Friday night, and Miami beat them 10-7, and USC was number 5.
Wow.
And see, that was those type of, and you would never know about it until Saturday afternoon because there was no cable.
No,
there was none of that stuff. So Saturday afternoon, you get on Channel 10 or whatever
Edwin
channel.
Pope was bringing it to you.
Yeah, Edwin Pope was. Yeah, that's right. Way back in the day.
Yeah.
But those are or even Miami and Florida back in like 77, 78 when they played on a Friday night in the Orange Bowl, and there were like 31,000 fans. It just people didn't. Miami's never been that place, and back in that era in the 80s when they had those type of teams, 83, 84. Did they start getting a little bit momentum? But FSU Miami would kick it off, and they'd have 70,000 in the Orange Bowl. But the next week, Miami of Ohio had been here, and they have 25,000.
Pick a seat anywhere you want.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
That's how I got started, man. I was playing for North Shore Optimists.
Yeah.
If you wore your pads, you get in the game free.
Yeah.
My first game, I think we were playing Oklahoma State, 1978. Yeah, I'm in the West End Zone with all my teammates.
Yeah.
And no one else.
Nobody would care.
Nobody.
Yeah, nobody cared. And see, that's what Miami has to go back to also because of these offbeat games. There's going to be those games that, like, to me, Louisville this year, Friday night. Not much interest. See, there's not. So what you need to do is get every youth football team in America, from South Florida, get them in there free. Nothing.
Yeah.
And give the kids a voucher for a hot dog.
No question.
And a drink.
This guy's old school.
Well, you've got to do that because
he gets it. He knows what.
Yeah, you can't. Ole Miss, you don't have to worry about that. Florida, you don't have to worry about that. Even FSU, you don't have to worry about Miami. There's a grand concern about getting people in the seats. Really. And even though they're in one of the best stadiums in the world, Hard Rock's a great state-of-the-art facility.
Yeah.
To me, everybody's in such a rush to move it to Tropical Park. Why? You know what? USC's played at the damn Coliseum forever.
Super Bowls take place here.
Yeah.
Right.
But been out to USC a lot of times. You go on their campus, you make the wrong turn, and you're a dead man.
Yeah.
So, it's right off of Watt.
Yeah.
And Compton and all those areas like that. Miami's in the grandest, probably one of the best areas in Coral Gables in the world. You send your kid down there, somebody in Dubuque, Iowa don't understand. They think University of Miami and, oh, shoot, they're right there in Liberty City and all that.
Yeah.
They're in the best area. You send your kid down there and you don't have to worry. You live near campus, you're fine. It's great facility.
Man. It's paradise.
Yeah, it is
Come on,
paradise.
A lot of money.
But the average person, because everything is stigma. And Miami, riots back in the day, and everybody looks at Miami as a melting pot with all the millions and millions.
Everyone remembers Miami Vice, Scarface, and all that.
100%. And they portray that as being, and that's kind of a negative to the person who doesn't live here. And we know because we're down here. It's Shangri-La. You go down to,
and we welcome the smoke.
Yeah.
We love it, man. We love it, man.
Yeah.
But I know you got a lot. You got a lot planned. Like he's coming with curveballs.
So I do have this one because we've had a lot of high school coaches on, on our show, and I've asked them a similar question: how do you think the NIL has affected coaching high school sports? Because you have a kid that's maybe Malachi Tony, who's 17 years old, making more, 50 times more. We talked about on our show how poorly South Florida coaches are even compensated. Out of everybody getting money, they're the least ones getting money. They're not getting paid at all. Everybody else is making money but them, and they're the ones raising these kids up from boys to men. So how do you feel that NIL has affected high school coaching?
Yeah, greatly. It's tough because of the fact that you're going to tell a kid, hey, listen, after practice, I need you to run these wind sprint. He's going to go, okay.
You run.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
You go do them for me.
That's what I can only imagine.
I'll pay you to run them for me.
And bring me a Jersey Mike sub on your way back.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, to answer your question, Mike, I would say greatly. It's just, you can't get that, unless you're Ice Harris, because he doesn't care. he has blinders on. He'll tell you to go, And, I mean, in the time I've done this, there's been some great coaches along the way. I had Travis Powell before I went off to college. The summer before I went off to college, I took some classes at Miami-Dade Junior College, and he was a teacher over there, and I had him for health class, just to get some credits and stuff like that. Guys like him, guys like, Ice Harris and people like that, they're old school, and if you don't want to do it their way, but for the most part, that's why we're losing. And obviously, we could do a whole story on the pay scale. And but you know what? Unlike Texas and Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, it's just this is a poor state as far as education is concerned, and it doesn't come out of the coffers of the schools. It comes out of the boosters in all those areas. You can't, because if the school board in Texas was paying a football coach $150,000, and he's not teaching, he just sits his ass in the field house all day, there'll be so many grievances filed by that health teacher or that physics teacher who's trying to get that kid,
what are we trying to preach?
Yeah. What are we trying
what's
to,
the message here?
So it doesn't work that way, and that's why we don't have our coaches are not being paid. I just think it's individual school districts. It's not the state. State has no bearing on Miami-Dade or Broward. What are they going to do? What are you going to? Because you're talking football, but when we're talking coaching, it's across the board. Girls soccer, sport.
Everything's terrible.
It's not just football.
Right.
So, because of the fact that there'll be lawsuits left and right. So that's what the holdup is. And I know the people who are trying to spur this on, great intentions, but the reality is it's not going to happen. It's just not. Where are you going to get this money from?
It's not high on the priority list.
No, it's not high on the priority list, and that's why when I think that every program or every school district should have fundraising people, to go to these sponsors, and not just Adidas or any of but go to all these little sponsors that, the hygiene products and teen stuff and car dealerships and all that stuff, and start saying, listen, this is the fact. We're not going to have a great product unless you help out. We need you. We need you financially to try to help our, kids grow, because all these people are making big deals of all these coaches are leaving and they're going to here and there, but not one damn marquee kid is left here. And they won't. Yeah. 365, 12 months, every day you can go out and play football here. Can't do that in Nebraska, and you can't do that in New York, and that's why you're not losing kids from the state of Florida, losing coaches. And I understand, because they got families. You're not going to make it on $55,000 a year with 100%. A family of four. You're just not. Not when apartments are $3,000, $3,500 a month. The interest rates are higher and higher and higher, and I don't want to get into that political war, but still. It's a fact that if you're, and especially now too, there's a lot of homeschooling. So what that does is it kind of devalues trying to get into the teaching profession or the administration.
100%. I'm watching that on the regular, because I've been approached on a number of different things with charter schools and that, based on my involvement with athlete, whatever it is, and man, what an education I'm getting on that whole.
Oh yeah,
holy moly.
And you're just at the beginning of that course.
Wow.
Believe me.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, and me having never left high school, ever since I've been, when I graduated from high school, I still been doing this forever, and I've been around the kids, and I've been around, and I hear all these horror stories, and you know what? But I can't. I could voice my opinion. But from a financial end of things, no. I mean, if my parents wanted me to be a doctor and all that stuff, and that was great, but I didn't want to be. I wanted to do what I do. And I, like I said, I'll never be a millionaire, as far as monetarily, but from what I've done in my life for 55 years and continue to do it, people don't realize, hey, well, when are you going to retire? Why? What am I going to do?
No,
I enjoy too much. Man. I enjoy too much showing up to all these games and all these camps and being around the kids.
What could be more fulfilling than what you do?
There is nothing. You know,
this guy's. You know, I'm not just saying because he's here, man. It's the truth, man. Like I've always been a huge fan of Larry's. I've watched him even way before we've ever met. And man, this guy. There's no one that knows more about high school football within this. Nobody. Yeah. Nobody.
But the bottom line is, I care. Yeah. Okay, you know, it's not like I'm putting on BS.
Yeah, you love what you do,
like,
man.
You know, I don't do that, you know, and that's why a lot of parents, you know, will say thanks, you know, at the end. And there's a lot of parents that'll tell me, oh, you don't know what you're saying. My kid should play here or there. But then they come back a year later and go, hey, by the way, you know, I'm still looking. And I said, "That's no. Listen,
you can't be right on every single thing. It's just how it is,
it's not being right. What it is there's too many other people who don't have the knowledge or the background, feeding them crap and trying to blow smoke up their ass. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Just to befriend them or just to be in that loop.
Before you met me,
you know, or being in that loop. Hey, I helped Joe out. Yeah, but Joe can't play at that level. Why are you telling the parents that he could play at that level?
Selling them false.
You know what? Yeah. And if he can, why not start him out smaller schools so he could go to and play? Yeah. You know, there's a lot of these private high schools where kids will go, you know, just to go there because they're wearing rings. But they won't play. But they could go to a lesser school, help the program out, and play, but they don't want to.
And get game tape and film.
No doubt.
You know, so
no doubt.
I got this question for you because we talk a lot about this on the show, and you are the perfect guest for this question. Nevin brings it up all the time. Who makes these ratings? What is up with these Can you answer like what the disparity is with the rating system in high school sports? Like,
well, you're talking to the right guy because I think stars are BS. I'm not a star guy. I've never been a star because I've seen too many guys that never been around this game. You know, they may have played. You know, here's a perfect example of somebody like Joe Brady. Okay, Joe was a backup quarterback at Everglades High School. And you see him last night sitting in the booth as offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, those guys are students of the game who have been around it and understand it and went to LSU and, you know, got his, you know, being Joe Burrow's guy. And you know, those type of guys like that put in the work, you know, without the fluff around them. But there's other people who, and I can tell you just from being on social media and I'm on all these, you know, boards and chats, and I come with it. You know, I tell a guy, you know, I'll tell a coach, you know what, you know, you're just blowing smoke. If you think that team, like to me, you know, you look at Dillard this year, and they're going to go 10-0. They don't really have a challenge. They have maybe Ely. But, you know, everybody out there is, oh, no way, because they think that, you know, that you can't be 10-0 in South Florida. But you can. You can, but it's going to not having that challenging schedule. If you have a Chaminade with 2 or 3 losses or St. Thomas with 2 losses, but they've played a schedule. You know, St. Thomas played the best team in the country over the last decade in Mater Dei and came within 3 points. How can you penalize them for that? How can you penalize, you know, a Miami Columbus who's playing Northwestern or going up to Olney, Maryland and going to Our Lady of Good Counsel, who's one of the top teams every year? You don't do it. West Broward, who opened up against a really good football team.
Yeah, you saw the difference.
A team that, you know, was really good. And then the following week went to Camden County. And I told you that's another program. When you have these small rural areas like in Georgia or Mississippi or such, you know, I mean, these guys, this is the whole Valdosta. It's the whole nut, baby. That Valdosta and Lowndes County, those 2 programs right there, they're everything on a Friday night. We don't have that. You know, you could be at Travis Powell for a Miami Central Northwestern game, and there's $10,000 down the street at Milan. There could be 400
people.
You see, and that's the disparity in South Florida. Is there, you know, that's why I went to high school at North Miami, and then a week ago I went to North Miami Beach, which was you know, when I was in school,
big rival.
Yeah, big school, big rival.
Yeah.
The other night, they had 4,000 on a Saturday night, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, you could never stop this rivalry. I don't care if both teams are 0-10. Why would you do that? You're getting you know, in this day and age, all these departments are, you know, it costs them money to just go and have a game at Trask because you have to pay for the stadium, you have to pay for security, the police, and by the time you come out of there, you're losing money. So I think you've got to be more. I think these athletic departments have got to get more creative. I think that if you're an athletic director in this day and age, got to suck it up and you got to start fundraising and get your entire programs, paid for. Because if you don't, go to the community. You look at Miami Beach back in the day. Miami Beach was great back in the day because they had all those little, areas. I mean, but now the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
When Booker T. Washington opened back up, you lost all those Samari roles and you lost all those Demetrius Browns and you lost all those Chad Ochocinco's and those guys like that because of the fact that now if you look at the population of Miami Beach, and it's predominantly Russian. There's a lot of Russians there, and they don't really play a lot of football, and you're getting a lot of the Jewish kids who don't play football. Very few of them do. So your
demographics have changed.
Demographics.
What were you gonna say?
What I wanted to say is, you made a really good point on the heels of Mike's question with star ratings. So I happen to get a lot of intel